Some authors want to dignify the media they use to tell a story. Alan Moore ennobled comic books for the American and British audience, who essentially believed that comics were just for a young audience. Moore introduced adult themes and complex characters, starting the movement to make the media recognized as an art form worldwide. This video will look at his Red Thread. A narrative thread connects all his works and runs through the themes he explores. Moore is fascinated by characters with superhuman abilities. The vast majority of his characters have abilities that exceed human beings. Of course, some characters are canonical superheroes, like Miracle Man. Not all of them, though, are superheroes or supervillains. In his stories, there are characters inspired by literature, myths, or history with skills or powers beyond human capabilities. What matters most is how he represents these characters. In Moore's stories, the superhuman characters can perform incredible feats, but it comes at a high personal cost. They are lonely, unstable, detached, and outcasts. To mangle a famous Stan Lee phrase, with great powers comes big incapability to deal with the world around you. The characters in his stories are shaped by their abilities, which molds their view of the world. The most extreme examples are the previously mentioned Miracle Man and Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen. These characters are represented like modern gods, capable of everything you can imagine, flight, teleportation, and in the latter case, creating matter from nothing. These powers position them far from the average human being, who they find incomprehensible. They become so accustomed to being immortal, indestructible, to doing anything they want, that humans become, from their point of view, something distant and beneath them. That even if they wanted to, they couldn't love or care for. In fact, by the end of their story, they both leave Earth behind. In the first case, to live among similar superior beings, and in the second, in a hinted search for meaning. There are much less extreme examples in his stories, but all these superior humans have trouble dealing with what they are, even when they accepted what they have to do. Like Alan Quatermain in The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, an exceptional shot and adventurer, also a drug addict and an alcoholic. Or V in V for Vendetta, a genius with enhanced agility, strength and reflexes, and a life mission, who's completely alone. Even the characters that already exist, like Superman or Batman, follow the same pattern in his stories. Superman's greatest desire is to live on Krypton. On Earth, he feels lonely and misunderstood because no one is like him. Batman has as many mental issues as the villains he fights. Through his stories, it is clear that Moore finds the modern era quite unsettling. He looks at its violent historical events as representatives of the Western society's problems. He views it as a violent and alienating society where fear controls people's mind, where issues are not faced but instead swept under the carpet like hiding dust. His revolution for the 20th century is clearly stated in From Hell, where the protagonist, William Gull, uses the murders he commits as a magical ritual to usher male supremacy and violence into the 20th century. He makes his heinous and savage murders a symbolic prologue to the worst part of the 1900s, like using the atomic bomb. His comics always show his political opinion and how he's afraid of governments controlling people's freedom and making choices for the public that are unsafe or straight up dangerous with the excuse to protect their freedom. The most famous example is V for Vendetta, set in a dystopian fascist UK, where the government has secret police that kills or imprisons people who are not aligned with the regime. We can find small examples all over his works though. The use of chemical weapons in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and, throughout the story, the birth of a totalitarian government, the control of people's freedom and opinion repression in Watchmen, the enlisting of a murderer by the Queen to cover a secret in From Hell. Moore's not a complete pessimist. In his stories, there is at least always a figure that gives hope to the reader. This figure went through the story's events, which leave scars on them, usually more emotional ones than physical ones, but they find the strength to accept it and keep living, sometimes making their lives better. Two examples are Mary Kelly in From Hell and Daniel Dreiberg and Laurie Jusperzik in Watchmen. As a personal opinion, I think Alan Moore is one of the most acculturated writers in the comic book world, capable of exploring different settings and periods with ease. He's one of the people who made it possible for comic books to be considered art, by exploring human themes and complex characters. In the description, I'll put a link to a couple of his comics. I hope you check them out. Onward to the next author.